right, we're doing a 2-for recipe, meaning this recipe can be found in both the Disney Princess Cookbook and the Disney Princess Tiana's Cookbook. And it's called Hoppin John. It's a dinner dish, and I will show you the picture of it right there. So this is apparently a Southern dish that a lot of people eat on New Year's Day to bring them good luck in the year. At least that's what the description says in the book. I don't know if that's true. If you live in the South and you're familiar with this dish and that's something you eat on New Year's Day, please drop me a comment because I'd like to know more about it. I actually never heard of this dish until now. Where I'm from, we have very German heritage, and so for us, New Year's Day, it's pork and sauerkraut. That's what we're supposed to eat to bring us good luck in the year. It's pork and sauerkraut. Anyway, so this kind of looks like a simple dish. You have to make the black-eyed peas and strain them, and then you got to put everything else together. So we're gonna get started on it, and then I'll be back with the reviews. Okay, so here's step one. I've got these black-eyed peas that I rinsed with a metal strainer, and I put them in the saucepan with some water. I'm supposed to bring this to a boil. Once it boils, let the peas cook for 2 minutes, take them off the heat, and then let it stand for an hour. You know, the skillet here, I've got all of my stuff kind of done and started. It's diced up. It's a diced up ham, it's some carrots, it's some onion, it's some celery. There's some spices and stuff like this, even like a little bit of crushed red pepper, so I expect a little bit of a kick. I'm gonna let this saute for a little bit, and then I'm going to add my peas. I'm adding the beans, sauce and all, directly to the pan. You bring this to a boil, and then you let it simmer for about 8 minutes, and then we move on to the last step. So the last step is I put in some rice and some water, and then I'm going to mix it all together, and then I'll cover it and let it cook and simmer until the rice is cooked, about 20 minutes. And here it is, done and ready to go. Review time for the Hoppin John. It wasn't a bad dish. It wasn't my favorite dish. It did need a little salt, but there was a lot of kick to it, I think, from like the pepper and the crushed red pepper and things like that. You know, part of the recipe was to put the black-eyed peas and like kind of like let them sit in the broth and stuff, or in the water that you cook them in for a little while, then you pour it into there. So before I did make the black-eyed peas, I did rinse them very carefully with a strainer, but I feel like some of that flavor was in the juice. Like, I don't know, you know how like when you do canned beans, you usually rinse them, but there's like that kind of like juice around it. There's kind of like a flavor to that canned juice. It kind of picked it up in the Hoppin John a little bit. So that was the part I didn't really care for. But it wasn't a bad dish. It was filling. Overall, it was just, So we'll get into the rankings and the reviews. The first are the ingredients on a scale of 1 to 5 in terms of how difficult they are to find or how expensive. I mean, I would say this is a 1. Everything was really easy to find. Like I said, I cheated by using, you know, pre-made ham cubes, but you could obviously, if you have ham left over from something else, you could buy a ham steak. So there's different options you could do with that. Difficulty rating on a scale of 1 to 5. And I'm going to give this a 2, only because of the time also, because I consider that as well, because there's a few steps involved. You know, you got to make the black-eyed peas first, let them stand for an hour, then you put stuff in your skillet, then you add things, and you add the rice. So it takes a little bit of time. I mean, it's a simple dish, but it actually takes, you know, a couple hours to get it together, you know, when everything's said and done, by the time you cook and prep everything. And then would I make this again on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being never and 5 absolutely? I have to say it's just a 3 for me. I'm really torn on this dish. I'm just really in the middle. I didn't like it enough that I'm going to say, yes, I'm definitely making this again. It was that good. But I didn't hate it either, so I wouldn't rule it out. So that's why I'm just going to put it down in the middle of 3. I'm kind of neutral on it. You know, maybe I'll give it another try someday or investigate this further. You know, maybe I'll try it on New Year's Day someday. You know, I don't know if pork and sauerkraut always works for me, so maybe this will.